Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for joining me today to hear about the benefits of Young Canada Works, how to apply and what to expect from a Young Canada Works work experience. So my name is Louise, and I am a Young Canada Works at Building Careers in Heritage Program Officer with the Canadian Museums Association, and also a communications liaison for Young Canada Works generally. And we also have a special guest with us today, Jessica Andras, who will be sharing her experiences with Young Canada Works from her recent internship that she just finished. So generally, I'll just be going over the two streams that the CMA administers: Young Canada Works in Heritage Organizations and Young Canada Works at Building Careers in Heritage. So, and just to note before we start, the presentation is being recorded, and it is also available in French as well. So I will be giving the presentation in English, and we have interpretation services provided by Geneviève. And so there should be an interpretation option if you would like to listen in French. And a quick land acknowledgement: the CMA acknowledges that its secretariat is located on the traditional territory of the Algonquin and the Anishinaabe peoples. We extend our appreciation for the opportunity to live and learn on this territory in mutual respect and gratitude. So what is Young Canada Works? So it's a federally funded employment program that's administered annually by the Department of Canadian Heritage. There's also a both official languages component, but today we'll just be talking about the heritage streams specifically. So when you go to the website, the Young Canada Works website, you can search for all of the different streams and apply generally to everything, but I'm mostly talking about, well, entirely talking about just the heritage aspect of YCW. So the program has been around for a while. It started in 1996, and it's intended to benefit Canadian youth aged 30 and under by providing short-term employment and providing opportunities to gain work experience and develop skills that are particular to the heritage and arts sectors. The program benefits the heritage sector directly. We provide funds directly to the heritage organizations to allow them to hire a youth for a limited term. So the internships or positions are at the shortest 6 weeks and at the longest 12 months. So as a delivery organization, we provide the funding directly to the heritage organizations, the museums, etc., and you apply through the museums, not through us. And it's not really through Young Canada Works. It's just kind of mediated by Young Canada Works. So what sorts of places might you be working at? So in order to participate as a Young Canada Works employer, an organization must be not-for-profit, an incorporated institution with a heritage mandate. So our employers are very diverse. They range from very small volunteer-run organizations up to large urban museums like the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Montreal. They include zoos and aquaria, art galleries, artist-run centers, natural history museums. University departments are eligible as long as it's something that will be available to the public. Libraries as well. Historical societies, archives. There's really a large group of organizations that are eligible for funding where you can work. So it's intended to be mutually beneficial. So it offers experience to youth who want to work in the heritage sector, and it also benefits the employers by allowing them to hire someone that they may not otherwise be able to afford. And I just wanted to point out that there is a travel reimbursement. So because of the fact that our employers are across the country, ideally in every province and every territory, we really encourage people to get experience in another province. Obviously, you don't have to, but if you do, we do offer reimbursement for if you travel by car, we'll reimburse gas, etc. It's usually the cheapest form, so like an economy flight rather than first class. And also if you have to stop on the way, we can cover the hotel costs as well. And you apply for that once you have the job. We'll send you a form and you can fill it out. Oh, I think I went backwards. There we go. So a quick review of the two streams. So we have, and they're separate. So when you go onto the website, you have the option of both of them. So you indicate when you go to the website which stream you want to apply for. You might qualify for both if you are a graduate, a post-secondary graduate, and also still in school. You can apply for both. They just usually vary a little bit in what the type of work is, but I'm going to get into that in a moment. So as mentioned, we have Young Canada Works in heritage organizations and Young Canada Works at building careers in heritage. Oh, sorry, goodness gracious. There we are. So Young Canada Works in heritage organizations is intended for current secondary, so high school students, as well as post-secondary students aged 30 and under. It used to be a summer-only program because typically that's when high school and university students had a free semester or free holiday that they could work for a short period, but it is now available to be worked anytime. And as long as it has to end by March 31st, so it can be into the winter if that's what the employer and you would like to do. So the work terms are fairly short. They're between 6 and 16 weeks in length. And you have to be a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or have refugee status, which is the same for BCH as well. So they tend to be fairly introductory. So it's more giving you some experience and introducing you to skills. You're typically not expected to come with skills already developed or a lot of experience or have any past training, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And you can also participate multiple times. So there's not really a limit on the number of times that you can participate as a YCW participant. Building careers in heritage is the longer stream. It's intended also for youth age 30 and under, Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or refugee. For the difference in this one, though, you must have graduated from a post-secondary program, which can include CEGEP, a college degree or diploma. It's a longer term program, so it's 4 months at the minimum, up to a maximum of a whole year. Typically, they don't last a whole year, but depending on when the funding offers go out each year, they are now a little bit longer, thankfully. So because they're longer, you're typically able to see a project all the way through. You can develop a program and then see it into fruition, which is something that both the employers and the youth who participate have really appreciated, as you really get to experience what it's like in a heritage organization because you're there for a longer period of time and get a little bit more in-depth work. You can only do the BCH program twice through the CMA. And so who is able to apply? So you don't need, as mentioned before, the basic eligibility criteria, but you don't need to have any specific skills or background required by Young Canada Works. That is up to the employers, though, so they should outline that on their job poster, which they put on the Young Canada Works website. So some of them might have very specific requirements depending on what the job is, but in general, there's no specific other eligibility criteria beyond the main 3 that I was mentioning. When we have interns and students from all backgrounds, physics, a lot from English and a lot from history, a lot from museum studies, but they come from all different archaeology, especially biology. It's very diverse. So yeah, anyone, you don't have to be a museum person. In other words, this is just an image of a couple of our Young Canada Works HO students at work at the Bodice Shoe Museum a couple of years ago. So what is the role of the CMA? Why are we involved in this process? So we have been delivering Young Canada Works since it started in 1996. So there are a number of delivery organizations, and you won't really notice when you're on the website which delivery organization you're choosing from. It really just depends on the type of organization and the position as well. So there's the Fédération des Milieux Documentaires, the Canadian Council of Archives, the Cultural Human Resources Council, and the National Trust. So if it's like a built heritage and you're, restoring built heritage, then it would be with a national trust. If it's more of an archival position, it would be through the CCA. So as a delivery organization, the Young Canada Works team at the CMA, we review all of the funding applications and we confirm that the employers are eligible. So we want to make sure that they're financially stable so that they can afford to pay you. We want to make sure that they are Canadian and that they have a heritage mandate. We also assess the positions to make sure that they will provide a beneficial experience for the students and interns as well as the employers. We'll want to ensure, for instance, that the role will build skills that are sought after in the heritage industry specifically. And we also want to make sure that the tasks aren't overly repetitive, that everything is safe, that you'll be well supervised, and that it provides just a general positive experience for everyone. So positions like maintenance, if it's purely like groundskeeping, that's not likely to be a Young Canada Works position, for instance. And, oh, skipped one. Okay. I missed one. I'm so sorry. There we go. So I just wanted to bring up this. We also have a reimbursement available if you need any sort of support during your work term. So that can include childcare, any kind of workplace accessibility issues. So if you need your workstation modified, if you have vision issues or hearing issues, anything that you need to support your work, you would just ask your employer, let your employer know, and they can send us the receipts and we should be able to cover it depending on what it is and just make sure that we know about it. And that is available up to $3,000 for every participant. So what types of jobs are there? So when you go to the job board, there will be positions for HO and BCH, and they're going to look very similar as mentioned before, but they'll all sort of overlap with positions in curation, collections assistant, archival work, communications, etc. So as I mentioned before, BCH will be a little bit more focused, a little bit more in depth. It might be focused on a particular project. We had one that was very interesting that was on, it was a cemetery registrar, and it was focused on creating a virtual and in-person tour of the cemetery and sort of the history of the community. It was very interesting. There was another one that was climate science specialist. So they can be a little bit more focused in BCH than they might be in HO. So some of the typical tasks that you might be doing are documenting and digitizing acquisitions, working on accessioning, developing and running educational programming, which is what Jessica will be talking about later, managing social media, and developing and giving tours, for instance. And so now we will turn to Jessica Andress, who I'm excited to talk to about her experiences with the Agnes Etherington. So let us know where you worked and what you worked on, Jessica.
Yeah, so I've been here at Agnes for about 8 months now. And I've been working as the education assistant, special projects. So the focus of my contract was really working on our school programming. So doing the edits and training for our fall session, and then developing from the ground up our education program for the winter. This also included the management of our docent team. So here at Agnes, we have about just under 30 docents, and they are really responsible for running and leading our school programs. So we develop them, we do the training, and then our docent team helps us deliver those. So that's kind of the gist of what the role was described as. But I was lucky enough that my wonderful supervisor and mentor, Charlotte Gagne, who is the programs coordinator here, she was really open to developing projects and skill sets for me that I wanted to expand. So I worked on some Agnes Learns videos that are going to come out later, which is our digital education programming. So I created 4 videos targeted for grade 9 to 12, which is kind of an underdeveloped age group for our digital offerings. I also assisted with running several public programs here at Agnes, including the Bader Lecture, the Kerner Lecture, our celebration for Patterns for All Bodies, which is a wonderful program that collaborated with some drag artists here in Kingston, and the opening for our final exhibitions. And that's kind of a nutshell of what I got up to here at Agnes.
So did you have any previous experience with education specifically?
Yes, yeah. So I actually worked as a guest educator at Carleton University Art Gallery while I was in my master's. And I also did my practicum at the Canada Council for the Arts Art Bank. And it was a guest curator role, but for Doors Open Ottawa. So with more of an education and public programming kind of minded curatorial lens. So I did have a bit of experience. I also worked as a TA in my master's too. Yeah, so I had quite a bit of education experience kind of coming into this role.
And was this your first? This was your only YCW
Yeah,
position,
this is
correct? Okay.
yeah, my first and only.
How did you hear about Young Canada Works? Just
Yeah,
out
so
of curiosity.
I wish I had found out about Young Canada Works earlier in my undergrad, because it has such a wealth of wonderful opportunities. I found out about Young Canada Works in my master's, I think through a professor, which was really helpful, especially when I was working, or pardon me, looking for that first opportunity post grad. It really was extremely helpful, especially because I find in the museum field, there's maybe not as many kind of entry level positions.
Mhm.
You need typically about 2 to 3 years before you can kind of get your foot in the door in something more permanent. So
Yeah,
it's incredibly, yeah, helpful.
awesome. And do you feel like it gave you sort of an inkling of what you wanted to do after? And did it help you sort of decide where to go with your career after? Did it prepare you, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I think that seed was planted at QAG
Hmm.
when I did the guest educator role. So I kind of came into Young Canada Works really trying to target programming and education roles because I wanted to continue developing those skills. Um, and working at Agnes was a great launching pad for that, and also allowed me to really deepen my skills and expand them because they offer so many different public programs. And although it was focused on the education side, because Charlotte was willing to bring me in on all these other programs going on at the gallery that were under
Yeah.
her larger domain, I was able to really expand those skills, which is super helpful because this is really the stream of heritage that I want to continue on
Yeah.
in my career. So yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add in there too that I find a lot of our, especially BCH, just because that's where my experience is. So I'm sure it happens with HO too, but people do, supervisors do tend to sort of adapt the position
Mhm.
according to what the intern wants to do. So at the beginning of the internships, we always send out a competency development plan, which I'm assuming you did, I hope. And the idea is that you'll sit down and you'll discuss like what skill you want to work on and what you think the task that will help you develop that skill is. And so you can kind of plan out and learn what, like, it's an opportunity for the supervisor to get to know you
Yeah.
and know what your interests are. And I find most of our, like, the most successful ones are ones where it's adapted to what will suit the intern. And I find the flexibility in YCW really helpful with that. And what are
Yeah.
you doing next?
Yeah. So I have secured a position as the Director of Learning and Engagement at Two Rivers Gallery in Prince George. So a nice step up
Yay.
in my
Congratulations.
career. Really looking forward to that. And I feel quite certain that without this contract, I just wouldn't have been able to develop the depth of skill required for this next step. So yeah, I'm very
Good to
excited to
hear.
start there. It's a contemporary art gallery, central northern interior BC. So
That's great. I do find there's also, I'd say like 30-something% of our BCH interns usually find full-time work after. So it's always, I love to hear it. And we get so many of our sort of employers are now like, because I've been with the CMA for about 5 years. So a lot of the people that I'm in touch with as employers were former interns that I recognize.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, hey, like, congratulations, because they're now working full-time in
Yeah,
the
and that
areas that
I
they're in.
know in my case, like Charlotte was at the Varley for her
Oh, yeah.
YCW. So
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's really
great.
lovely too, because then you have supervisors that really understand what
Hmm.
kind of the point of these contracts are and help
Yeah.
you really shape and mold and develop.
Yeah, and I know I didn't mention this. Sorry, this isn't specific to your experiences, but just to note in terms of the number of positions. So for HO, it's a larger program, so there's about 1,200 ish. Like I don't want to give a specific number because I don't actually know, but it's around it's over 1,000. BCH though is a smaller program, which is why it's more of a mentorship type of
Mm,
program focused on like career development. So for us, there's only about 200. So it's a much smaller sort of, I don't want to say more intimate, but it's just smaller, more intense kind of program. So there's not a lot of the positions out there.
mm.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we'll take questions.
Yeah.
I hope people will have questions for you at the end. Um, Thank you, and we'll hope to chat in a bit. There's only a few more slides left. So normally, if we didn't have a special guest, I usually like to talk about Kirby's role. She was an intern from a few years ago, and she just did this amazing project at she sort of developed in an empty space what a grocery store from the 1940s would have looked like. So she was able to kind of recreate the experience from the ground up. And um, so it's just one of my favorite YCW projects. So I'll just get into the very specific details about how to get started. So you just go to the website. It's pretty easy. You just create your profile. You can indicate the stream that you're most interested in. You can definitely indicate both streams. You add a current resume, highlighting sort of, the cultural heritage aspects of your experiences. And a cover letter is helpful, a general cover letter. You'll want to make sure that you select the correct year. I think I've got a couple slides on just showing you where that is in just a second, because that is something that comes up frequently. So if you go currently, I think it defaults to the current year. So 24-25 is the correct year that you'll be wanting to search under. So you search for jobs. You should have job posters with detailed instructions on how to apply. Actually, Jessica, I will ask you, did you find it an easy process, like applying and like going through all the steps for it?
Yeah, I think it was fairly smooth, fairly straightforward.
Okay, good. Because I do
Yeah.
wonder sometimes if it's, confusing, because it feels like there's a lot of steps to go through, but it's pretty easy, I'm hoping. Um, So there's just an example. So when you go, we now, of course, have, unfortunately, which makes it a little bit more complicated, multi-factor authentication, which has been tripping a few people up. Um, but here we are. So you just indicate the role. So you are a candidate rather than an employer when you create your profile, and off you go. Select your stream. Make sure when you're on your dashboard and you're looking for positions that you're under the correct year. So you can change it to like last year. Um, And there's somebody, this was somebody's who had been selected as a candidate for a particular position. So you get pop-up banners here. This is like your dashboard where you'll get information when a form is available, etc. And then next I'll show the job search. So if you want to, again, just start showing you where the year is. So you can go to the program, select there. You can search according to like words. So if you're more interested in education, you can use like education programming archives. If you're interested in working like with Coast Salish, you can put in Coast Salish. So you can sort of do a keyword search. If you're only interested in working in Montreal, you're welcome to search however you want for the jobs. And this is an example of a job poster. It is a terrible job poster because it is extremely short. But I just wanted to give an example of how when you go onto the job board, you will see that they give instructions on how to apply. So you'll want to make sure that you follow that. And then it just gives the specifics of where it is, the name, the hourly wage, etc. But normally it should have a much, much longer description, so you'll know what the job is. But this one I just selected because it fits onto the screen nicely. So final tips. So if you're sending a resume to the person directly, of course, you'll want to tailor it to that position. But when you have it on the general YCW website, you'll want it to be vague, sort of general, but tailored for whatever it is that you're interested in. And keep your profile updated, especially if you're applying for BCH. So you'll want to indicate that, you've graduated, so that when we look at it, we don't have to follow up and be like, oh, have you graduated? We want to make sure you're eligible. Keep your cover letter general that's on the website, but again, sending it directly to a person whose job you're particularly interested in, you can make it as specific as you want. Again, with the program year, that does trip up a lot of people. That's why I'm emphasizing it like 10 times. Oh, and this one is key. So currently we have a bunch of jobs on the job board, but we keep adding them. So currently you might not see a job that you actually are interested in. But if you keep checking back like next week or in a month, there may be more positions available that interest you more. And then just my last tip is just to be engaged with your local heritage community. Volunteer if you can. Just keep up on what people are doing. And this is just our contact info. So if you want to reach me if you have questions, YCW@museums.ca, please feel free. We've got lots of resources for YCW on our website. And yeah, now it's questions. So if you have questions for myself or for Jessica, please feel free. I love questions. What makes a good cover letter? That's an excellent question. I don't know specifically for YCW. If I know specifically what would make a good cover letter, I would say it should be specific to the position. If you're sending it to someone specifically, highlight why you're interested in that particular job. Hang on one second. So yeah, I don't really have, does anyone else have any tips for a good cover letter? Did you have a cover letter, Jessica? I am terrible at writing cover letters. I really don't enjoy them. But I think just emphasize why you're a good fit. So point out your experiences.
I think too, looking at the keywords, the key responsibilities and tasks, and then trying to give tangible experiences that assert why you have experience in those tasks. Usually the top 3 to 5 that they emphasize are the most key. I used to work in recruitment, so spent a lot of time around resumes and cover letters.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want people to be like searching for why you're interested in the job. It should be like that should be the purpose of your, like, it's not an opportunity to just kind of talk about yourself. It should be focused, right? But I'm not a fan of cover letters, I have to be honest. Like writing them, it's the most stressful thing. So why is it 30 years or younger? Because it's through a specific federal funding body called YES, which is specifically for youth 30 and under. So it's through Canadian Heritage, but the funding actually comes through Youth Employment and Skills Strategy, which is specifically for people 30 and under. There is a huge demand for things that are for things that are geared for people over 30. We get that a lot, especially in museums and the cultural sector, because people will switch careers or sort of, shift a little bit and want to get some experience or graduate later. And so Canadian Heritage is aware of this. And I think that as far as I'm aware, they are considering a program, but I don't have any specifics. I'm so sorry. I'm behind on but I love questions. I'm really glad you guys have questions. Is how did you craft your resume? Any recommended tools? Is that for Jessica? What would you recommend for candidates who lack relevant experience?
Oh, I guess for myself, I just use like a Google Docs format. I don't think the formatting of your resume really matters as long as it's clean and clear and consistent. Um, Make sure, you know, if you're using periods at the end, make sure there's always a period or not. Those
Mm.
kinds of things really matter. Um, I think skills are transferable. So I, you know, before even I was in recruitment, I had retail experience, I had barista experience, customer experience, public facing experience. That's still relevant, especially in my current job
Mhm.
in public programming. Any work with kids, if you want to work in education or public programming, that's transferable. So I think, you know, coming up with those key things that you did in your job, and using, you know, language that asserts its importance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think any kind of experience can be relevant experience, and you just need to make that clear. A lot of the interns and HO students especially, you know, will be coming from retail experience, and they have that on their resume, and you know, they get selected. And so it's not really a barrier, I think, if you don't have specific experience, unless it's a conservation job and they're like, you must have conservation experience. But it's sometimes honestly a willingness to learn, or, you know, a displayed interest can also count for a lot. So I think you just need to be like articulate about it on the resume and the cover letter, to make yourself sort of stand out and seem like you're applying to this because you're interested, because you have an interest, and not just because it's a job. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Jessica. Do you also provide internships or co-op opportunities? So you can, do you mean co-op through university? If you do, then yes. So it can be done through co-op. A lot of the co-op programs are able to use YCW positions. I guess it would depend on the timing, um, you know, but yes. So the short answer, yes. I'm not sure what FSWEP is. Does anyone
Oh,
know?
FSWEP, that's the Federal Student Work Experience Program.
It is different, as I don't know what that is. So I assume you can apply to both. I mean, I don't know if, yeah, I don't know how it would work together, but like, do you mean, can you have two jobs at the same time? If yes, you can. Um, Employers can combine CSJ funding with it. I don't know about the other streams of funding, but are there positions available for arts and culture marketing, or would it fall under communications? It really just depends on the employer. So yeah, yes, like it's not really, people will title their jobs. They might be title it communications. Like it's very arbitrary what they happen to title it sometimes. But yeah, there's a whole gamut. So it's not really that they have to apply under like just solely communications or, you know, X. There's jobs under whatever the employers are interested in doing with their positions, if that makes sense. What are the similarities and differences between Young Canada Works and Canada Summer Jobs? Canada Summer Jobs isn't focused on heritage. It is summer, but it's as the HO stream used to be. So people do tend to confuse them, but it isn't a heritage specific job. And it doesn't have the same focus on skill development for museums and art galleries, etc. Oh, so YCW is not applicable for people with work or study permits. No. So not if you're not a permanent resident or have refugee status or Canadian citizen, unfortunately, unless it's under very specific conditions. We are certainly sometimes open to, you know, exceptions for things, but you would just need to make it clear why an exception would be permitted. But typically the citizenship and age ones are non-negotiable. Um, but it, you know, you can always ask if it's a particular exceptional case. Did this help? Okay, that's a question for Jessica. Did this help you build a portfolio? How did you choose what stream of communications you were most interested in?
Stream of communications. Okay. I'm gonna assume that means like kind of career path, or job interest. So in terms of how this helped me build a portfolio, I gained management skills, project management skills. I learned budget skills that I didn't have previously. Um, Previously, my only grant application experience was SHIRK, and OGS. So it was really useful to gain that experience as well. Grant applications are going to be key anywhere you are in arts and heritage. So super important. I also was able to kind of do my own projects like Agnes Learn. So I worked with the curators and the artists to actually develop and conceptualize those Agnes Learns. So it's really nice if you can get kind of projects that, if your supervisor is willing, you can kind of put your own stamp on as well, and have ownership over. That's super helpful when you're job seeking. And then in terms of how I chose my stream, because I had that previous experience at QA with education, I'd always wanted to be a teacher when I was younger. And then when I kind of switched over into art history, I was seeking, opportunities to do something educational in art or museum institutions. And so I was really intentional when I was doing my job searching that I wasn't necessarily interested in a sole curatorial role, for example. And Agnes stood out just because for my own research, I focused on Prudence Heward. So I was aware of the Agnes because of Natalie Lutsky's work here and Expressions of Will, which is a great catalog, exhibition catalog of Prudence Heward's work. So that's kind of what determined my path.
And I see another question, just I'm on the Q&A now. So are there only full-time jobs available through YCW? No, you can work part-time. People typically, it's usually prioritized for full-time positions, but there are part-time. If you are in a position where you can only work part-time, that is also negotiable with the employer. So it's really everything to do with like the parameters of the job is entirely up to the employer. So it did used to be a rule that they had to be full-time, but it has become, especially during the pandemic, it became a lot more sort of open, just to allow more people to have access because there were conditions there that were unusual. So it's really opened up a little bit, but almost all of them are full-time. Part-time is allowed though. It's completely allowed. Are there specific times of year when most jobs are posted, especially for graduates? Right now is the key time. So because of our funding cycle where we just issued funding offers about a month ago, jobs are just starting to get posted. A lot of them are posted now. So this would be, I'd say, the key time from now for the next few weeks is the key time when jobs are posted. But some of them don't start until fall or, August. So again, it's up to the employer, although a lot of them are flexible on the start date, unless it's keyed to a particular event that you're planning, or like Jessica's was with like developing educational programming that was on a timetable. So yeah, it's pretty flexible. Uh, let's see. Sorry, just switching back to the chat. Are there opportunities in the fall? Yes, there are. So we have a lot of positions that don't start until fall. It should be clear on the job poster when they start. But yeah, a lot of mine don't start until fall, especially in BCH. A lot of the HO positions do start earlier, because of people being used to the fact that it is a summer program. So it's mostly a lot of the employers are still sort of on that, also because of summer being like sort of tourist season when a lot of jobs are needed, because people are open and they tend to close seasonally when it gets cooler. But yeah, they're open or available like all year round. Are there opportunities in the digital stream of art, graphic design? Definitely, yes. I couldn't say how many. I saw Jessica was nodding. I don't know if you have any special insight.
I think that's something that's developing for sure, but I believe
Yeah.
one of my colleagues here had also done like a digital YCW
Oh, yay. Okay, yeah.
opportunity. So yeah.
Yeah, no, there's sort of everything that is currently, of interest in the heritage arts world is really available under YCW. So you can search under the job titles for that if you're interested. Um, are there still jobs for co-op? I mean, it's not, do you mean YCW jobs? If so, then yes. So yeah, there's lots of jobs still out there. We've only posted, I know for HO for summer jobs, they haven't all been posted and they certainly haven't all been taken. So there's still lots of jobs left. I want to find part-time work in the summer term. Do you have opportunities? Yes. Yeah, there's lots of opportunities. You just have to go to the job board. So it's just the Young Canada Works website, which I can copy and paste into the chat. Let's see if there's any other questions. That is a good question. When searching for jobs through YCW, is there a way to search for jobs that are currently hiring rather than jobs with deadlines that have passed? Yeah, that's an excellent question. Well, currently there's not very many with deadlines that have passed. But I don't know if you can actually search that because I don't think that's actually keyed in as a term that you can search for because it's sort of just in their job poster. So it's not like something, and again, that makes it quite flexible because if they haven't found someone, the deadline, we try to keep the job poster updated, but it's up to the employer at the end of the day to let us know. But yeah, it's fairly flexible. So even if it says it's passed, let them know. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just once you indicate interest on
Yeah.
a job, it'll also tell you if it's filled or unfilled, which will give you more info on, oh, maybe I can still apply to this role if the deadline has passed.
Yeah, that's good insight. Thank you. But yeah, that's a good question. I thought you were asking like for ones like can you specify like if I want to work starting in June rather than December? Which is also a good question, and I don't really know the answer to that one either. But you can certainly see it like on the job posting. So it's like at the header. It's that info's in the header of the job. Oh, I was just gonna add in the YCW job board. Are there any other questions for either Jessica or myself? There we go. Sorry. Oh, sorry, just adding that there. So there was a question, there's a job I'm interested in with no information for where to apply. What should I do? You can apply directly. If it doesn't specify a separate way to apply, then you can just express interest through the website. And if you don't see how to do that, I can also help you with that. I'll just put my direct email in as well. So YCW is a general email address. I'm always happy to help with specific sort of website negotiation or navigation questions too, because it can be difficult. But you just select express interest in this position and they will get a notification. And it should also have, ideally, it should have their email address. Oh, that's a very good question. So someone has asked if there are any remote job opportunities. And yes, there are. It should indicate again in the job poster, but during the COVID epidemic, a lot of them had to be remote. And so it was possible, obviously not, all are able to be done remotely. But there are definitely opportunities. And if it's something where you're not able to be there for part of the time, it is again something you can negotiate with the employer. There tends to be flexibility for some, like it's obviously not going to be all of the jobs if it's like a gallery, like a conservation position, or you're, showing people around the gallery in tours, giving tours, etc. that won't work, but otherwise it should be fine. It is on the YCW job board. Thank you, Monique. Yeah. So you go to the Young Canada Works job board. Do you have a profile already? Is that where you have found it? If you go there, it should oh, okay. Yeah, then you just want to go there and make your application through the website. And then it should show you. There's a button. There's literally like a link. It says express interest in this position. So that's how you do it. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, because I'm always happy to help people out with that, because the website can be confusing for many people. Employers and students and interns. Are there any other questions? Well, we have Jessica. Yeah. So you go, that's the sign in, that's the link to sign in. So you go there. So every time you have to sign in, and if you don't have a profile, you'll just be directed to go through and create one. It is a little bit more tricky now because of the multi-factor authentication, so that's added another layer of complication. Sorry, I'm just reading Lisa's question. Can you reiterate Heritage Organizations HO hires around 1,000 positions during summer more versus the Building Careers and Heritage, which only hires around 2,000 or 200. I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct. So there's far fewer of the BCH internship positions. The HO stream is much bigger because it's partly because it's shorter. It also gets a lot more funding. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. I'm so sorry. I'm just reading. Sorry, should be reading out loud. You mentioned expressing interest in job postings. Is this a button or a direct email? So it is a button on the profile. So you click it, and then the employer will get a notification. So that's if they haven't given instructions. You can do both, of course. You can express interest and follow their instructions in the job poster, but they should give instructions in their job poster, most of them, some may not. So then you can just express interest. It could mean that it's yes, most likely. But it should be there if the job is available. Or it could be that you're looking in the wrong gear sometimes, but definitely email me because I can always help out with that as well. Because sometimes might be an issue with the website, or perhaps they might have hidden something. It could be a few things. So yeah, if you see a job poster, but then there's an issue with expressing interest, or you have any questions, feel free to message me. Yeah, I think that might be the end of questions. So yeah, thank you so much, Jessica. That was really interesting to hear about your role, and congratulations on the new position. That sounds very exciting. And thank you so much for joining us, and everyone else who joined us. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Yes, the jobs are all across Canada. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, Louise.
Thank you.